Once upon a time, a Japanese man wearing colorful pajamas found himself in an unusual situation. He awoke in a room that was entirely white, lacking doors or windows, and with no visible ceiling. As he ventured closer to one of the walls for a better look, he noticed something peculiar protruding from it, a strange button that resembled a certain male body part. With curiosity piqued, he tentatively prodded the peculiar button. To his surprise, pressing the tip caused a remarkable reaction. Giggling baby angels materialized from the floor and walls, only to disappear after a few moments. However, they left an odd change behind. Now, similar protuberances emerged from the wall and floor, a phase they called learning. Perplexed by this bizarre experience, the man sniffed the finger he had used to touch the button. A sense of dread washed over him, and he screamed in fear, followed by cries for help. But his pleas fell on deaf ears. Determined to understand this peculiar room, he decided to experiment with the various buttons that adorned the walls. Each button press produced a different outcome, causing random objects to appear in the room, from small items like toothbrushes to larger ones like vases. Repeatedly pressing the same button yielded the same object, resulting in a growing pile of chopsticks. His amusement was short-lived, though, as the next button he pressed, located next to the chopstick dispenser, released a small cart that collided with his legs. The subsequent button press transformed into a bizarre scene, with a butt appearing and releasing gas in his face. Hours passed, and the man found himself surrounded by a bewildering assortment of random objects. In a moment of hunger, he hurled a ball at the wall, triggering a button that delivered sushi, much to his delight. However, he realized that he lacked soy sauce to complete the meal. His requests for soy sauce went unanswered, and he resorted to repeatedly pressing buttons, accumulating sushi, but still missing the essential sauce. In frustration, he devoured the sushi and found it delicious. When he finished, he pressed the button for more, only to be incensed when a bottle of soy sauce finally appeared. Pushing the bottle aside, he tried a different button and received a pair of old-school 3D glasses. When he wore them, he saw a baby angel pointing at his own member, igniting a glimmer of hope. However, his optimism was dashed when he pressed that button again, leading to a countdown and a massive butt descending from above, releasing gas. The man's frustration persisted as he tried to continue his manga reading. He pressed a button in search of the 6th volume, but received the 7th instead. Frustrated, he pressed other buttons, obtaining volumes 8 and 9, but the elusive 6th volume remained out of reach. However, the last button he tried had an unexpected surprise. It revealed a hidden door behind a section of the wall, offering a glimmer of hope. Excited by this discovery, the man temporarily lost track of which button opened the exit. His first and second attempts to escape resulted in the door slamming in his face. He soon realized that the door stayed open as long as the tip of the peculiar button was held down. To achieve this, he experimented with different methods. He tried pressing the button with his foot, swatting it from a distance, pulling it with a jump rope, and using a fan to activate it. None of these approaches worked. His next plan involved a cart, but he discovered he couldn't control it effectively. He realized that he needed to find a way to keep the button's tip down. Placing a large vase on it didn't work, as the button popped up again. He concluded that he needed to make the vase heavier. His first attempt involved using the water button, but it proved futile. The water only soaked him, not the vase. He then attempted to fill the vase with sushi, but it became too heavy for him to lift, and its narrow neck prevented him from reaching inside with his hand. Using chopsticks, he removed sushi piece by piece. After managing to lighten the vase, he placed it close to the buttons. However, he became confused about which button he needed to press. In his attempts, and summoned the African tribesman, who accidentally caused the vase to break in half. Frustrated and agitated, the man found the right button amidst his panic. He covered it with sushi, but this effort proved futile, as the peculiar button popped up among the rice. Subsequent attempts involving tape and a steel plate also failed. To cope with the pain caused by the door hitting his back, he took some painkillers and had a nap. Upon awakening, he desired to brush his teeth, so he pressed a button for water. As the man's unusual journey continued, he encountered a button that, unfortunately, was not the right one. Instead of its expected effect, It revealed a rope descending from the ceiling, sparking a newfound idea within him. This discovery brought a glimmer of hope to the man's spirits. He devised a new plan. He would open the door, employ the hanging rope to swing across the room swiftly, and reach the exit before it shut. However, his hopes were dashed when he attempted to open the door concealed behind the imitation wall, only to find it securely locked. Frustration loomed as he barely escaped the door's closure, suffering a minor impact on his way out. In his frustration, he kicked the wall, inadvertently triggering one of the room's buttons. To his amazement, it unveiled a floating key within the chamber. Nevertheless, much like the disappearing door, the key vanished as soon as the button retracted. The man was confronted with the challenge of keeping both the key and the door accessible. First and foremost, he needed to locate the button once more, as he had become momentarily distracted and lost track of its position. Employing a combination of observation and deduction, he determined the approximate location of his foot's impact when he kicked the wall. He subsequently selected a button, which unexpectedly released a dog that barked at him. The same outcome transpired with the next button he chose, but his third attempt proved successful. Maintaining a fixed gaze and pointing towards the button, the man cautiously retreated and retrieved a piece of sushi, which he utilized to mark the correct button. When he activated it, the dog reappeared, yet the man was able to identify and engage the button more swiftly, progressing with his plan. He summoned the rope and swung from it to reach various buttons, but his efforts were still insufficient. His descent brought the discovery of a plunger, acquired from one of the many buttons, which sparked an ingenious solution to his predicament. After a single failed attempt, the man successfully employed the plunger to propel himself further along the wall. This combination of swinging on the rope and pushing with the plunger enabled him to press the button for the key, grasp the key, access the door button, and reach the exit before it closed. Without delay, he inserted the key into the lock, turned it swiftly, only to be confronted with an unexpected challenge. The door possessed an additional lock at its top, necessitating a 3-digit code for access. In haste, the man dashed out, inadvertently colliding with the door as it closed, and vented his frustration by hurling the plunger against the opposing wall. This impulsive act triggered another button that materialized the African tribesman. As the tribesman passed by, the man discerned something peculiar. 3 numbers were inscribed on his forehead, which he suspected might be the combination he required. Aware that time was of the essence, the man undertook the arduous task of swinging on the rope and leaping for each of the 3 numbers. After 3 attempts, he remained suspended, opening the door with great effort, eventually forcing it open. Once inside, the panel behind him sealed, leaving him trapped within the room. This disheartening development led to a moment of despair, and the man found himself sitting on the floor, recollecting the enjoyable moments he had experienced with the objects obtained from the mysterious buttons. Despite his previous confinement, he had enjoyed the freedom to move and explore, but he had failed to appreciate those moments to the fullest. Suddenly, a gentle breeze caressed his face, emanating from the left wall. Without hesitation, he identified a crack in the wall, signifying its fraudulent nature. The man wasted no time in pushing the panel open and escaping, ultimately arriving in a dimly lit corridor floating in a void of darkness. His journey through the corridor felt as though it extended into eternity, with each step drawing him closer to an exit. By the time he reached a room, his hair had grown long, and the vibrant colors of his pajamas had faded. This room, much like the others, was devoid of furnishings, with a door that closed promptly upon his entrance. However, this room was distinct, populated by adult angels who, like the previous baby angels, retreated into the wall, leaving only their distinctive appendages protruding, akin to buttons. This room was identified as the practice phase, suggesting that the man was in the midst of honing his skills for the trials ahead. His actions had profound effects on Earth. With every button he grasped or stepped on, extraordinary occurrences unfolded on Earth, from flowers blossoming to elephants perishing. The higher he ascended, the more complex and influential these effects became. His actions no longer pertained solely to nature, but also encompassed humanity, involving events both mundane and monumental, ranging from simple appliances to significant historical milestones like the moon landing. Upon reaching the pinnacle, The man had grown long hair and a flowing beard, and he no longer required physical contact with the walls to remain suspended. Like the angels, he could now float, and he embraced his newfound role as a benevolent overseer, consciously selecting humanity's most profound achievements rather than relying on random button presses. Upon completing this momentous task, he found himself encircled by feathers rather than walls. Subsequently, he ventured into a radiant portal that transported him to the final room, where the continents adorned the walls. Within this chamber was an imposing button resembling a particular male body part. This marked the commencement of the future phase, where the man stood at the threshold of what lay ahead, poised for more enigmatic experiences and unforeseen revelations.